Welcome everyone to today's webinar, How to Meet Patients Where They Are with a Comprehensive Digital Engagement Strategy. Thanks so much for joining us. We will begin today's webinar with a presentation, and we will have time at the end of the hour for a question and answer session. You can submit any questions you have throughout today's webinar by typing them into the Q&A box that you see on your screen. We look forward to hearing your questions. This session is being recorded and will be available after the event today, and you can use the same link that you used to log into today's webinar to access the recording. At this time, it is my pleasure to start today's webinar by quickly introducing our speakers. So we have Wendy Cochran, who is the Senior Director for Global Provider Strategy at Salesforce. We also have with us Morgan Griffith, who serves as the Vice President of Digital Strategy and Transformation at Bon Secours Mercy Health. We also have Dr. Sindhu Pandit, who serves as a Global Clinical Lead for Healthcare at Salesforce. And last but not least, we have Mazi Rasolnia, who serves as the Chief Executive Officer and Founder for Pacquiao. And now I will turn the floor over to Jason Marshall, who is the Senior Manager of Healthcare Marketing for Salesforce, to begin our discussion today. Jason?
Thanks very much, Abby. Hey everyone, I'm Jason from Salesforce. I want to welcome you. Today's webinar, where we want to focus on how providers can leverage a comprehensive digital engagement strategy to build patient trust and personalize the patient experience. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of the day to join us, and I especially want to commend the healthcare organizations on this call and beyond who are on the front lines during these extraordinary times and have risked so much for so many. Today, we want to share that our customers are telling us that the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the need for health systems to expand care delivery by going digital and embracing patient engagement to meet the expectations of the healthcare consumer. In the next normal, all healthcare providers must be digital companies, and we've seen that urgency as 69% of our customers are using Salesforce more than before the pandemic. And as they look to invest in solutions, our customers have told us they want to be inspired by positive messages of resilience and learn how others have turned the tide with digital transformation. And that's what we're going to do today, as we will spend most of our time with two trailblazers from Bon Secours Mercy Health and Pacquiao, who will speak to their digital transformation journeys. So before we get started today, I always want to remind everyone that Salesforce is a publicly traded company, and to make investment decisions based on currently available products, as we may be demonstrating some forward-looking innovations. Wanted to quickly introduce the thought leaders on this call who have been working together over the last few weeks to ensure that we are sharing some insightful and engaging content. We have Wendy joining us from Boston, helps lead our global provider strategy at Salesforce. We have Dr. Sindhu Pandit joining us from New Orleans as our resident Saints fan. She's assured me that she's able to put Monday night's loss to the Las Vegas Raiders behind her for this session. But more importantly, she is our global clinical lead on the healthcare and life sciences team at Salesforce and is a board certified physician in physical medicine and rehabilitation, who continues to practice in New Orleans. Morgan Griffith is the Vice President of Digital Strategy and Transformation at Bon Secours Mercy Health and joins us from Cincinnati. And Mazi is the CEO and founder of Pacquiao, joining us from Birmingham, Alabama. And both will share firsthand how they have leveraged technology to streamline patient engagement, better manage populations, and improve operational efficiency. So we want to be very thoughtful with our agenda so it could be as relevant for all of you as possible. To start, we'll have Wendy and Dr. Pandit share Salesforce's point of view on how providers can leverage a comprehensive digital engagement platform to accelerate their digital transformation to become faster and more relevant to patients than ever. And then Amanda Staggs from Salesforce is going to give us a demonstration of some digital engagement tools that can complement and enhance the patient experience. And then we're going to hand it over to Morgan from Bon Secours Mercy Health and then Mazi from Pacquiao, who will each share their digital transformation journeys both before and during this extraordinary time. And then we're going to end with a fireside chat from our speakers and then a Q&A, so you should all feel free to submit a question. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Wendy from Salesforce. Wendy, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jason. And, you know, it's especially important that we want everybody to know before we get started that we are particularly grateful to have you here, especially our healthcare workers. It's not lost on us that this is an incredibly trying time for so many. And as someone who personally has family members and coworkers on the front lines, I would bet some of you probably have your children in your laps right this second and acting as parents and teachers and employees all at the same time. So we want to take a moment and genuinely say thank you for your time. We are so grateful to have you here with us and we're going to look at the positive changes that we are poised to make across our healthcare ecosystem. So that being said, as all of you well know, the pandemic has touched and transformed every aspect of our life and business. And I had a conversation with a customer CEO the other week, and he said something that I thought was really interesting, and I decided to write it down. He said that his business, because of this pandemic, had to perform 5 years worth of innovation in just 5 weeks to adapt his health system's challenges to their most critical needs. And I imagine that for those of you listening, you have a similar story. I've personally been in the healthcare space for over 20 years, and for all this pandemic's challenges, it has been heartening and exciting to see the silver lining of rapid innovation in healthcare. But with the rising expectations of innovation in our industry, how are we supposed to cram 5 years of strategy and technology advancements into a matter of weeks, all with the same tools that we've been using for years? The short answer to that is we need to first realign our strategic imperatives. Using best practices and strategies that have been successful throughout this pandemic to date, we need to deploy the right integrated technology systems to be able to execute against them. We've heard over and over again from our customers, especially over the last several months, they need to build comprehensive digital engagement strategies to meet this new demand for innovation. And we know from working with these customers that there are 3 areas of their businesses in particular that depend on a strong digital engagement strategy. First and foremost, providers must invest in a secure and scalable platform infrastructure. Second, they need to develop a high-touch, patient-centric engagement using AI and automation to deliver the content patients need when they want it and where they need it most. And once consumers are engaged, they're more likely to adhere to their treatments and care plans. This will allow us to drive better outcomes and reduce some of the high costs of healthcare in our system today. So let's dive a little deeper into that. First and foremost, the important step is implementing a cohesive digital engagement strategy is to make sure that you have access to the right data to do so. And with currently 80% of our accessible healthcare data being unstructured and unable to produce actionable insights, and that's only our accessible data. The vast majority of this data that our industry produces hasn't even been tapped into yet. So needless to say, good data is hard to come by in our industry. That's why you need a digital backbone, a single open platform that ingests data from user interactions, normalizes it across your ecosystem, and puts it to use through actionable insights. Digital backbones offer a secure, scalable, and intelligent platform to generate and surface data that can point to opportunities to boost operations. We can reduce administrative burdens, we can look at streamlining workflows, and the overarching challenge of connecting disparate systems to power the business forward. A digital backbone also decreases friction by allowing providers to improve the patient experience, manage cohorts of populations more effectively, and ultimately be able to deliver care proactively. Sindhu, as a practicing physician, can you take us through the effects digital backbone can have on patient care?
Absolutely, Wendy. Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of you have heard before that you need to deliver the right care in the right place and at the right time, which is absolutely true. These are the modern day necessities of delivering care. To take that approach one step further, however, we aim to provide a comprehensive digital solution that enhances the personalized care experience, weaving in the in-person encounters, which includes delivering the right care at the right time. This is our ultimate goal of crafting a digital engagement strategy. With an adaptable platform in place, you can attract and retain patients by establishing brand consistency through proactive communication, leveraging multiple channels to establish loyalty and trust in order to become the provider of choice. Being able to transfer data through seamless integration You have the power to surface insights and strengthen your patient relationships with proactive, personalized engagement, and therefore meeting the patients where they are. Tailored journeys addressing dynamic healthcare needs of a patient with self-service options and real-time insights, and provider-patient relationship can move forward from reactive and paternalistic to empowering the patient and being predictive, keeping the patient engaged in their health for that long term. Delivering the right care in the right place and at the right time should not imply there is a singular task to complete. In reality, often you need to engage the patient for multiple things at one time, and needs and conditions are dynamic. So this, in many ways, is an ongoing conversation, especially as patients look to live well with disease and age with chronic conditions. This is a lifelong commitment, and you need an agile tech partner that's in it with you and your patients for the long haul. At the end of the day, what does a digital engagement strategy mean for your organization? In short, results. A comprehensive digital engagement strategy supported by integrated technology solution will drive accessibility outcomes, clinical outcomes, and financial outcomes. A scalable platform allows for expanded patient access and reach by using telehealth, virtual care solutions for routine care to increase touch points with vulnerable populations, as well as staying nimble and prepared to respond to emergencies. By harnessing data in an efficient manner, risk management and populations can be handled in real time with a goal of improved outcomes and moving towards wellness. Digital engagement through human-centric design and intelligent automation can optimize operations by reducing administrative burden, streamlining workflows, and connecting disparate systems to power the business forward, ultimately reducing the cost of care. As a provider myself, I know how important it is for us to focus foremost on what we do best and what we love to do, deliver quality care for our patients. A comprehensive digital solution is not in lieu of an in-person experience. When developed with users in mind, it enhances the high-touch in-person experience. Evolving for what's next will take technology to make the connections easier so that the provider organizations can focus on making the relationships stronger with their patients and the healthcare team members' experience richer. Back to you, Wendy.
Thanks, Sindhu. This is a really exciting time for healthcare and technology, and the shift to digital is happening quickly, and that's why Salesforce created the Patient 360. And while this pandemic has undoubtedly posed many challenges, it has also granted us one massive favor. Technological innovation in healthcare is no longer a nice to have. It is a need to have. And more importantly, it's achievable. So we've built core technologies like mobile, AI, workflow, communities, and the highest levels of security into every app on the platform so that you can leverage the newest technologies in days, not years. So now I'd like to introduce Amanda, who will show us how the Salesforce Patient 360 gives providers the agility to scale quickly, surface the right data, improve the patient experience, and drive better outcomes. Amanda, over to you.
Thanks so much, Sindhu and Wendy. Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Staggs, and I'm a lead solution engineer with Enterprise Health and Life Sciences at Salesforce. Today, I'm going to show you a brief demonstration of some of the Salesforce capabilities you can leverage for your digital transformation. Keep in mind that what you'll see today is just a small part of what Salesforce has to offer. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Sam Peterson. Dr. Peterson has spent 6 years as the medical director of chronic disease for Mackenzie Health. She wants to be able to focus on patients with chronic conditions, but her data is in disparate systems. They currently have multiple EHRs and data lakes, so understanding the patient population and managing care plans is a challenge. Let's take a look at how we can help consolidate all of that data and make it actionable. Using Tableau, Makana Health can pull in data from many disparate data sources and bring everything into one place for analysis. They can connect to patient information from their various EHRs by using Tableau's native connectors to SQL Server, Snowflake, and more, or they can pull in public data. In this case, Makana Health wants to bring in a data source with daily air quality to see how this could impact their patients with chronic conditions. After connecting all of the data sources, Makana Health can easily create a dashboard that they can monitor with all of the information Dr. Sam needs in one single report. Dr. Sam has a regional view across the top with the latest numbers for COVID cases, flu patients, and air quality index. These facts provide an important context for her as she's looking at her population of patients with chronic conditions. Dr. Sam also has a holistic view below of her patient referrals with chronic conditions, readmission rates, and no-show rates. Since her focus is on patient referrals, she's going to drill down into the data. Dr. Sam now has access to see the referrals broken down by condition as well as any trends. This view lets her see more about the chronic conditions patients are being referred to Makana Health for. As we continue to drill down into the detailed data points, you can see how the same set of data is available for everyone, including the care coordinators. Next, I want to introduce you to Melinda Smith, who is a diabetic care coordinator with Makana Health. Historically, she hasn't had a way to access her patient data from a population standpoint due to disparate data. With Tableau, Melinda is able to see a broad view of the patients with certain conditions and drill into their records. By drilling down into the same dashboard, Melinda can see her diabetic patient referrals. She can slice and dice the data just by clicking through some of the charts. She can see how many male patients have been referred, or she can filter to look at her critical risk females. Melinda can also create an alert for any data points she needs to keep track of. In this case, she's going to set an alert when any patient's blood glucose level is above 200. Melinda now wants to focus on the patients who are on today's schedule. By filtering to those with appointments today, she can see the higher risk patients. Melinda can also see that Charles Green in particular has a higher risk than the other patients. She notices an anomaly with Charles's blood glucose level that she can address during their virtual visit later today. Let's take a look at how Melinda is able to jump straight into his Health Cloud record using integration with Salesforce. As a new referral to the Makana Health Diabetic Program, Melinda is now able to drill down into Charles Green's record to view his information. Health Cloud offers care plan templates that include the ability to manage the different plans and their associated tasks. Melinda can also view and manage Charles's care team. She's able to view his PCP, and she was able to assign his nutritionist since she knows Andy Molina is a nutritionist assigned to new enrollees. This view ensures that Melinda has enough information to put Charles in contact with the correct provider and make any necessary referrals. Once Melinda has an idea about Charles's upcoming care plan tasks, she's then going to review his connected device data. Melinda can see Charles's connected devices and also see that he's been taking his blood sugar regularly. She can also verify any out-of-range alerts that she got from Tableau that we saw earlier. When Melinda talks with Charles later, she can verify this reading and talk with him about using his glucometer correctly. Now let's take a look at Charles's experience with the digital patient journey. 5 days prior to his virtual visit, Charles receives a text message inviting him to log into the Makana Health app. When Charles logs in, he's prompted to verify his demographic data and his preferences. This ensures that Makana Health is communicating with Charles in a preferred manner. You can see that the survey is dynamic, so if Charles answers that some of his information is incorrect, he has the option to provide his correct contact information. He can also rank his preferred communication method depending on how he wants to communicate with Makana Health. Once Charles verifies his contact information, he's then directed to the home page. You'll notice that he has an alert with a link to an article to help him prepare for his upcoming virtual visit with Melinda. Charles is also able to view his upcoming appointment. Once he drills into it, he can either confirm or change the appointment. Charles clicks the confirm button to let us know he's coming and receives a confirmation that we're expecting him later today. Now that it's time for his appointment, Charles logs into the desktop view to virtually check in. You'll notice he has additional options on the desktop view as the community is configurable between devices. Now that he's ready for his virtual visit, he's able to use the chatbot to let Melinda know when he's ready. You can see that the chatbot prompts Charles to confirm if he's ready for his virtual visit to begin. Once he confirms, he's going to receive a link to join his virtual visit with Melinda. Now Melinda and Charles are able to walk side by side through all the options available for Charles on his patient community. First, Charles can see a list of his medications. Melinda uses her view inside of Salesforce to see the same medications and can also drill down into the details if Charles has questions. Next, Charles can see his household. This helps him to know each person involved in his care, both at home and with Macana Health. Melinda can access the same information to help Charles identify other individuals to help manage his care. Charles is also able to see his future tasks and appointments. Using the timeline feature, Melinda can see a chronological view of these items and can drill into them for additional details. As we saw earlier, Charles has a few connected devices he has set up with Macana Health to help manage his care. Both Charles and Melinda are able to see the device data as well as the device information. Now that the visit has concluded, Melinda can mark this task as complete in the care plan. Charles can continue to educate himself using the additional content inside of his patient community. He can also access Trailhead, which offers gamified learning that allows Charles to continue to educate himself, fill in health literacy gaps, and address the ongoing informational support as he lives well with this condition. Macana Health can continue to maintain a lifetime engagement with Charles using Salesforce. As Charles and other patients working with Macana Health continue to be more digitally connected, care coordinators, case managers, and other leaders at Macana can use the various reports and dashboards inside of Salesforce to keep track of program adherence, enrollment, portal usage, and more. This helps Macana Health understand the overall health and well-being of their patient population. Thank you so much for your time today, and now I'll turn it.
Thanks, Amanda. Really great to see how providers can aggregate disconnected data in one place and easily identify actionable insights. And great to see how various roles in the organization can drill into those details and view patient-specific information to manage care. Thanks again, Amanda. It's a great demo. So next, we want to give the floor to one of our customers to share what she has seen at her health system. Morgan Griffith joins us from Bon Secours Mercy Health, where she leads system-wide digital strategy, creating innovative customer-centric strategies to make healthcare easier and more engaging. Morgan's background in digital has focused on using data-driven approaches and best-of-breed technologies to drive growth and connected consumer experiences in healthcare. Morgan, thanks for joining us, and over to you.
Thanks so much. Great to be here with you guys today. And before I get started, just want to give you a little bit of background about Bon Secours Mercy Health. So we are one of the 5 largest Catholic healthcare systems in the country. We have points of care that are upwards of 1,200 different sites spanning 2 countries and 7 states. And as you can imagine, as healthcare systems continue to grow and contract and expand, with that too comes a lot of disparate processes and technologies and systems that oftentimes makes accessing healthcare not as seamless as it could be, right? And healthcare is already hard. You're going through something potentially where you're sick or you have an urgent need. And we really want to ease the burden for our patients and make it easy for them to get what they need, find what they need, feel like that experience is personalized and connected. And so we'll talk a little bit about that journey today. So just to kind of get us started, it's been really important to us through this journey that everything that we've done and built and seek to build is grounded in consumer needs and consumer insights and the research behind that. So this is a little bit of an eye chart, but basically to summarize, we went through a consumer benchmark study and research against where we compared ourselves against not only our competitors and the industry on the whole, but also against other industries. So you'll see here at the top the reference to Net Promoter Score, or the overall satisfaction or willing to recommend an organization. And this data is a little bit old. This is from the beginning of our journey, which began in early 2018 from a planning perspective. And at that time, we were just Mercy Health, not yet Bon Secours Mercy Health. And we really found from our consumers that we had a huge opportunity to streamline the experience and really meet them where they wanted to be met. And so to kind of summarize those touch points that are most likely to impact that satisfaction, the overall summary is kind of I want what I want, when I want it, via the channel I want it, at the time that I want it, and how I want it. And we know that from a digital perspective, this is just incredibly important. So over 50% of the folks in our markets at this time are what we would consider digitally intense. And those are those patients and consumers that really do want convenience and do want self-service access. And when you meet those needs, they are fiercely loyal, but when you don't, they are much more likely to switch. And so based on that, and also the need for creating sort of a seamless closed loop patient access and engagement platform, our journey began and focused very heavily on a couple of elements, digital, of course, being one of them. So just to kind of summarize, some of the questions that we most often get are kind of, how did you even approach this? How did you drive transformational change through an organization that's so large and has continued to grow over time, and really get people on board with that strategic direction? And as kind of a starting point, based on the research that we did and the insights that drove our roadmap, we laid a couple of key stakes in the ground early on. One of those was that we wanted to establish a new operating model and an enterprise-wide contact center that would support the entire ministry. So historically, we had a variety of pre-service centers or pre-access centers where different telephony systems were in use, different technology, different processes, and it was really clunky to navigate. We wanted to be able to facilitate those scheduling needs for those who did want to come in via phone from one central and standardized operating model. We wanted whatever we were to build to be this one-stop shop for access. And the way that we kind of define that is, aside from just being able to pick up the phone and schedule an appointment, that you could do the same things on a self-service basis that you could do over the phone, and that in doing so, we would recognize those consumers as the same person. So I should be Morgan, whether I'm on the phone with a contact center agent or whether I'm using our mobile app or scheduling online. That was a really important stake in the ground for us. Master data management, I think Wendy spoke quite a bit at the beginning about the need for data that's not only clean but also actionable. So we knew that we had a lot of work to do in that regard, and I'll touch a little bit on that in a minute. And then most importantly, a commitment to CRM. So for those of you that are actively involved in digital or technology in the healthcare space, you know that the EMR is always going to be sort of the centerpiece from a clinical data perspective. And we wanted people to understand that that's not changing, right? Our EMR is going to be our EMR and the source of that clinical truth. But there is so much data on top of what's available through an EMR that when brought together and really made actionable, we can really change the way we deliver care, the way we personalize the experience, and the way we communicate with our consumers. And so what did we want to accomplish? We wanted to build what we're calling sort of a fully integrated patient access and engagement platform, again, that recognizes each consumer as themselves, regardless of the channel they come through, that is sending data and information back and forth in real time, and really does make healthcare easier. And so from that, we really defined a roadmap that focused on 4 key buckets. And this is kind of the starting point. We'll talk about the detail behind this in just a moment. But accessing information and navigation support. So how do I find the right provider? Who do I need to see? What type of care do I need? Accessing the care itself in a place and way that's convenient to that consumer or that patient's needs. Financial transparency is a big component. We know that people are highly dissatisfied when they don't have clarity on what it is they can expect to pay for the services that are delivered. And then post-care engagement, which is not only referral management and appointment scheduling as follow-ups, but also delivering personalized content that's meaningful, that helps keep that consumer or patient engaged along their healthcare journey and beyond. And again, sort of reiterating that we really wanted these capabilities to be available regardless of what channel a consumer was engaging with us through. So we took those 4 big buckets that you saw on that previous slide, and our first kind of step in defining our roadmap was really breaking those groupings down into core capabilities. So if you'll recall on the previous slide, access to information and navigation support. As just a few examples, I want to be able to find a provider. I want to be able to access patient education materials, or maybe I want to be able to renew my prescription, and so on and so forth. We then took those capabilities and broke those down to features, user stories, and then finally functional and technical requirements. And this really helped us to develop a level of rigor and discipline in the way we outlined our roadmap. Again, the core features and needs that were going to be met via that roadmap, and then have sort of a framework through which to flesh that roadmap out over the course of what is a total of 2.5 years. Doing this, I'll just note here, and we'll touch on in a minute as well, really gave us a very clear lens of what it was that we were seeking to build, how we were going to approach building it, and then when COVID hit, really gave us a clean sort of lens through which to reprioritize or shuffle pieces and parts of that roadmap that became much more needed and much more critical and much more urgent given the state of the world we live in today. Part of that roadmap called, again, for making sure that we were providing like-for-like capabilities on a self-service basis as we are, via the phone or any other channel. And so with that, we've developed our first consumer-facing mobile app and the corresponding sort of components of our digital front door. And one of the things that I want to mention about this that feeds into our discussion about the customer and patient 360 is, again, the EMR will always be our clinical source of truth, but there is so much that can be done outside of what's managed through a standard patient portal that we really wanted to unlock for our patients and consumers. So not only are they now able to access, the same standard capabilities that you expect through a patient portal, like looking at your test results or your medications or finding a provider, but they can also do additional things like manage patient education materials, access our resource library. They have the ability to access other tools that are not natively available through our patient portal through what's sort of a vendor agnostic framework that we've built. So we can do on-demand video visits via Amwell, for example, but we also can facilitate video visits through MyChart. We can do e-visits as we always have been able to, but we can also allow someone to wayfind or ride share directly to a location that offers same-day walk-in care. So really bringing together so many different pieces and parts of that patient experience and the digital experience outside of just what's available through a patient portal. And why does this matter, aside from it meeting consumer needs, which is obviously critically important? We really wanted folks to understand that when we unlock the full potential of the data that is involved with our consumers and their experiences and their various activities across the system, that we have such a better understanding of those patients and consumers. So I think typically and historically, healthcare systems think about the customer 360 or the patient 360 as these kind of light blue boxes at the top, the standard information like my demographic information or my insurance. But when you couple those data sources and elements with additional information like second and third party data or connection to wearable devices, or even someone's previous donation history with an organization like ours, which is nonprofit, we really have a better picture and understanding of these patients and are able to communicate with them in a way that is so uniquely personalized and really does help make healthcare easier for them. But even on top of that, again, we want to make the experience as seamless and meaningful as possible. When you look at these boxes at the bottom, there are so many advanced analytics that we can derive from what we're building. So things like propensity to no-show, which may ultimately change the way that we remind someone about their appointment, maybe more frequently or more often. Or maybe it's about managing demand and capacity better or changing the way we recruit providers to meet patient needs. When we're really connecting the dots across all of these different systems and all of these different sources of data, we're able to unlock so much potential to really improve the overall experience. And so just to kind of summarize how things have changed as a result of COVID and why developing this roadmap and approaching it in this way was so meaningful and impactful for us and for our patients. Again, a little bit of an eye chart, but you'll see at the top, we have this very loosely defined sort of roadmap around scheduling and which markets we were going to provide scheduling to first and in what order, but had all these other elements and waves and iterations of our roadmap already defined. So when COVID hit, our roadmap became much more robust, much more agile, with many more releases in a very short amount of time, and we've been able to unlock the potential of the tools that we're using, like the Marketing Cloud for reminders and confirmations and patient engagement, the virtual platforms that we're using in addition to pushing our mobile app to production. So it really did give us a great framework to be able to be nimble and to pivot in a time of crisis and to meet our patients where they are with what they need. So that's it for us today, and I will pass it back over to Wendy.
All right. Thank you so much, Morgan, and thanks for sharing your approach and mindset around your digital strategy. I know I've got some questions for you once we move over to our fireside chat. So now I'd like to introduce Mazi Razulnia, CEO and founder of Pacquiao, to share how they were able to quickly scale to meet the needs of their customers and patients. Mazi?
Thank you, Wendy. Good afternoon, everyone. If you don't know about Pacquiao, we're a digital health patient engagement and health coaching company focused on chronic care support. We've been supporting thousands of members through our partnerships with life science companies, health plans, and providers to really engage members in their home. Our main focus early on in our company history was to engage members in between visits, as many patients live with their chronic conditions more often in non-traditional healthcare settings. And there were really four focus areas for us. One is, as Morgan mentioned, is to personalize the information and engagement. Second, to make it very convenient for the member. Third, to ensure that there's a high touch and empathy first strategy. And last but not least, a data-driven strategy. And so early on in our company history, as we developed our solution on Salesforce, we were very much a complement to case managers and providers in helping them be the eyes and ears of for their patients. When COVID hit, a lot of realities changed. The first was that largely support became a home-based event, and the needs of members also changed. And so we became more of a digital health responder for the healthcare community, specifically provider communities. And so some of those things included members feeling lonely, not having access to housing, food insecure, ensuring that they have access to their medications, how to set up telehealth visits. So a whole host of issues that arose as a result of COVID. And so our blend of tech and sort of human empathy really became the focus for a lot of our members and for our clients to scale. And since then, we have doubled in size over the last 5 months and helping thousands of members become engaged in their healthcare. Really, from our perspective, our roadmap centered around 4 pillars. One was very important for us to treat the whole person. The average member in our network has 3 chronic conditions. They see about 4 doctors. They're on about 8 medications. 20% of them live in rural areas, so high social determinants that prevent them from accessing the right care. And so we have developed a system to onboard various journeys, as it were. So each particular chronic condition we treat as a journey and are able to help members across a wide variety of chronic conditions, whether it's cancer care, autoimmune conditions, cardiometabolic, behavioral health, pain management, and the like. The second area the second pillar for us was the high touch focus for our members. We learned in our customer experience research that many members did not just want an app and download a particular app, create a username and a password, but really to have a human connection, help them through their issues. And so when you sign up for Pac Health, you get your own dedicated, what we call health advisor, to not only help tailor the journey and the education, but also the services and escalations that come about. And that's really helped us to be able to scale, but also make it very personal for those members. The third pillar has been a configurable stack. And so one of our early decisions to be on Salesforce, in hindsight, was a very, very important decision because it created the open platform for us to integrate with now over 400 different wearables and devices. So we can remotely monitor weight, temperature, glucose readings, respiratory readings, temperature, a host of different devices that the member may be using in their home environment, but also to then create sophisticated personal care escalation protocols back to that provider. So if a particular member has a clinical issue, we can now escalate that to the top of the list for their provider, rather than having the member and the doctor try to figure out what is going on. And then the final pillar for us was to systematically collect what Wendy mentioned earlier, which is this breadth of information, this unstructured data that's out there. So we use a lot of what we call PROs, patient-reported outcomes. These are instruments such as the PHQ-9 for depression and anxiety, or the MEDACI, which is for in the area of oncology, and collect this information in a way to not only address and understand the risk profile of that member, but to also personalize the information and the services that are necessary for that patient to achieve a better health outcome. So what does this look like from a tech stack? This is one visual that we like to share. It's four different layers that are built all on Salesforce. One is our data storage layer, so everything is stored securely and is accessible for various reporting reasons. Second is a service layer for us to be able to provide content and engagement in a very seamless fashion, but also ensure that it's personalized and tailored to that member's needs. The third layer is for third-party integrations. So we're able to record every touch point, for example, collect any type of data from secondary devices or third-party data sources, but also to be able to understand what is going on the call. So we have transcripts of every call and are able to respond to issues that members may have. For example, during COVID, we were combing through calls to really understand what patients were really asking about relative to COVID and their chronic condition, and developed on demand about 60 pieces of content that we're able to then provide to our members. And then the final layer was a user interface for both externally for our members, which can use an app, but really all they're doing is providing, engaging with their health advisor via text, email, and phone. But then the user interface for our health advisor to be able to manage hundreds of patients at a time, rather than in a traditional setting, tens of patients. So the result of all of this work over the last several years has come down to this. We've now, during COVID, since March, have been able to deliver 1 million meals to our members who are food insecure. So typically our dual eligible members, our Medicare Advantage members, Net Promoter Score to be very, very high. On average, we're engaging members about 14 minutes per week, which, as you can imagine, that is significantly higher than a face-to-face interaction in a clinical visit, and have been engaging number of touch points of over 100,000 touch points since COVID, which, again, that high touch point has allowed us to not only stay in tune with our members, but to ensure that they're getting the right services in a home setting. That's resulted into lower depression scores, increased exercise. Since a lot of gyms have been closed, we've shared with members how to achieve some of their exercises in a home environment, gain control in terms of blood sugar, so reducing A1C, and hospital readmissions for our sickest patients. And so with that, I wanted to just kind of share with you all what it is, at the end of the day, what we're looking at is how technology blended with the right type of human interaction can really provide not only the right engagement, but the right outcome. I'll turn it back to you, Wendy.
That's awesome, Mozzie. Thank you so much, and Morgan, for sharing that digital transformation journey and all of the insights. And so now I'd like to bring us all together really for a conversation. And there's been some really great questions that are coming in. And so when we get to the Q&A session, we've got some fantastic topics. As consumerism in healthcare is growing and the expectation that organizations leverage new digital technologies to create better experiences, I think the first question is, how do hospitals and health systems look to develop or reimagine their current digital engagement strategy? What are the most critical elements in gaining buy-in around a system-wide digital transformation and patient experience focused roadmap? So Morgan, I'm going to start with you on that one.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned in my presentation, our research, it was really a huge driver for our roadmap. We didn't just want to build what we thought was the right thing to build. We didn't want to change things that we didn't know with certainty that mattered to consumers. So that sort of foundational research that really shared or elaborated for us, what is it that consumers care about? What makes a healthcare experience satisfactory for them? What do they expect and what do they demand? And we know that upwards of 70% of consumers expect an Amazon-like buying experience, regardless of whether or not it's in the retail space or healthcare. And so we really started with those ideas of being consumer-centric and meeting their specific needs, the ability to find doctors seamlessly or have virtual visits or schedule after hours or whatever it may have been. And then we took what we expected to glean in the way of an enhanced patient experience through these connected systems and the work that we've done in digital, and also layered on top of that a really robust and granular business case where we outlined out, expected patient growth, growth in patient loyalty and stickiness, and also, of course, satisfaction, the call deflection rates we expected to see because we enable better self-service, capabilities, and the cost savings that are gleaned from eliminating redundant technology. So I'd say the combination of consumer research that helped shape that roadmap and being able to show how much we could impact patient satisfaction, and on top of that, how we were going to drive growth, satisfaction, and a better experience through the system that ultimately impacts not only our patients, but the success of our system overall, were the two most critical elements. And that socialization was imperative. And we also combined that with involving providers from the very beginning, right? So you can't drive this type of transformational change in access without bringing the providers along for the journey and helping them shape what that looks like. So I'd say those three items were most critical in our success so far.
Wendy, Jason, do we want to hop on to the next question?
Yes, I'm sorry. Here I am talking on mute. It's really important, Morgan. Thank you so much for that. And, really engaging the entire parts of the business in your digital engagement strategy. And so I'm going to pivot to the next question. And Mazi, what are some of the biggest barriers to driving this type of transformation have you seen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, what we've seen is ensuring that you have a plan in place when you are developing the tech and how that's going to really scale at the end of the day with the human touch that members experience and also are expecting. But also, as Morgan said, that you fit into the ecosystem. So whether you're looking at pre-service, at the point of service, or post-service, how does that really integrate to create a seamless experience for members?
And, Mazi, one of the other barriers, and it's a question that also came in, is, what was the staffing like for you during this transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, because we don't do any clinical work, we look for hiring allied healthcare professionals and really hire for empathy first. And so the challenge has been obviously to onboard and train individuals across the board as we've been scaling. So we've hired now 80 individuals since the pandemic has hit. And so onboarding those individuals and making sure that they've got the appropriate training. But again, all of our systems are in Salesforce. Our training is in Salesforce. Our engagement is in Salesforce, and all the tools. So really that was the only major hurdle in making sure that we get the right folks in the right seats.
There's no doubt that care delivery is going to continue to evolve. And how will remote monitoring, virtual health technologies transform really the patient engagement experience going forward? And Sindhu, I'm going to point this one to you as a doctor on where you think we're going with our engagement.
No, so this is such an important topic, and it's obviously changing pretty rapidly. We've seen such an explosion in terms of adoption of tools in the home by patients. So there's no shortage of data streams to take into consideration when we're delivering care. I'd probably break it up into three buckets, if you will. Morgan spoke a lot to this, involving the clinicians when developing the workflows on how to incorporate these data streams appropriately into care delivery. You really need to know how all of this fits into the workflow and how tasks can be automated and intelligence can be brought in to actually utilize the time between the clinician and the patient in the most efficient and most appropriate manner. The second piece is that not everyone is the same kind of consumer. So making any sort of assumption on what type of device is best for a person or what kind of relationship a patient wants via technology, you really need to inform that through the patient or through the consumer's lens. So it's really important that that's dynamic and it can change. So they may want to share certain data points with you and maybe not others. They may want to engage with you via the portal for certain topics and not others. So being able to remain dynamic in how you're consuming the data streams is really important, and allowing that patient to guide that relationship with the provider. And finally, I would say that empathy remains consistent in both of these aspects. So what Mazi called out.
Thanks, Sindhu. And, Morgan, from your perspective, what do you see an evolution of a virtual hospital over time?
Oh gosh, a virtual hospital. I can certainly say that we have seen tremendous growth in our delivery of virtual care overall as a result of the pandemic. And keeping patients connected to their providers and to their healthcare overall is obviously increasingly important. Although it always is. We've seen over a 10,000% growth in our daily virtual visits. We went from doing tens per day to thousands per day. I think we're close to 600,000 since this started. And that also really required a quick pivot as it relates to technology. So absolutely, I think anything is possible. It's really going to depend on where we land as a result of COVID, but we certainly have pivoted heavily towards virtual, but also, infusing those notions of empathy and personalization and making sure that our patients feel connected to their health and to their providers.
That's a great point, is the feeling of connection. And I think I'm going to stay on this topic because there's a lot of questions also that are coming in on this. And so, Mazi, your entire business is virtual. So can you kind of expand on how you see this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think virtual is going to be obviously part of the healthcare delivery, but we are starting to see a lot of our members who want that interaction with their healthcare provider. I think the episodic check-ins for basic needs will be sufficient, but for ongoing care, I think we're going to see a blended future between traditional healthcare settings as well as virtual. But the other point I wanted to make is from a pre and post setting, that's really where I think a lot of the experience changes can really serve us well as the healthcare community. So making it easier for people to register and get access to appointments, like Morgan said, but then post, once the clinic visit or the engagement with their doctor, nurse, pharmacist has ended, how do you continue to engage that member in a virtual way and make them feel that somebody cares and is watching over them?
That's great. And, as we think about, the shift to patients' expectations and it's increasing is, and I'm going to ask this question also coming in from the crowd is, how do you look at acquiring new patients and keeping them engaged? And then, Sindhu, I'm going to pivot that over to you and say, what does that look like for us to drive outcomes and really change the patient experience going forward? So, Morgan, I'm going to start with you around your thoughts around the experience, and then, how do you look at acquiring and keeping patients and then really keeping them engaged?
Yeah, I think, this all goes back to the original points about grounding everything that we're doing in consumer research and meeting consumer needs. I think the experience ultimately is the differentiator in the way patients, navigate healthcare. You can see a doctor basically anywhere at any time in most cases, but really feeling like you have a uniquely differentiated experience that is personalized and tailored to your needs and that meets those, convenience-based demands that we all notions of patient safety and apprehension for seeking care. I think really just putting those consumer needs at the center of everything is, increasingly critical to make sure that you're delivering, a differentiated and seamless experience overall.
Mm-hmm. And Sindhu, how do you think about that as it drives, as it relates to outcomes?
Yeah, I was just going to build on what Morgan's saying. I think outcomes is, also dependent on increasing that reach and increasing the number of touch points with your patient population, including those that are vulnerable. So, the digital divide is real. Social determinants of health is ever, increasingly more important. As they say, the zip code now is being found and being called out as being as important as your genetic code. So I think as we're considering reach and moving care out of the walls of the hospital, we have to keep in mind the entire spectrum of patients we're serving.
That's great. So I think if we're going to move over now to the Q&As from the audience, and I want to thank everybody that's on the call for submitting your questions. There's some great ones. And so Morgan, although the EMR is not going away, the question is, I'm sure there was a discussion about when it made sense to roll out a feature offered by the EMR provider versus building it via the new digital platform. So can you give us our thoughts on how your digital strategy incorporated the EMR and any other systems like Salesforce?
Sure, absolutely. So we historically have always had a group that's responsible for governing new feature development within the EMR and the patient portal, which is my chart. And what we've established as we've kind of pivoted over time is that really becomes blended with our overall sort of digital roadmap and strategy. So where historically there may have been, there's a new feature, this is a valuable feature, we're now looking at that through the lens of, again, this consumer research and consumer needs and what ultimately drives their satisfaction before determining whether or not we enable that feature inside of the patient portal or as part of what we're building that folds in those features from the patient portal or, in an entirely new way of approaching it. So the governance has become blended, but again, all grounded in consumer needs.
Excellent. And, as we think about, there's a great question here about mental health and, has it been studied or kind of lumped into your thinking around your digital strategies? Sindhu, would you like to start there? And then Mazi, I'd love for you to jump in as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely mental health has to be one of the considerations when we're, leveraging these tools as we're seeing an explosion of, it is definitely a concern across the board. So using these tools to reach patients where they are and continue a conversation around this and open the line of communication so that they can reach out for help when they need it is an absolute critical need as a part of this entire strategy as we're supporting our patients.
And Mazi, on the back end of that, sorry, Mazi, there's a question on the back that is very much like that, and it's, are alternate language offerings a part of your digital experience and part of your digital strategy?
Yes, we have real-time live translation for 194 languages to be able to address any patient population. And as it was just mentioned, related to mental health, we assess mental health across all chronic conditions, but we also escalate them to our behavioral health program, which many members have underlying conditions, other chronic conditions related to their mental health.
Excellent. Well, I think we are at time for our questions. I absolutely want to thank our panelists, Morgan, Mazi, and Sindhu. And at this point, Jason, I'd like to turn it back to you to wrap us up.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Just a quick few minutes here. We really do our best to make these sessions as impactful as we can. And if you like what you heard today, I'd like to invite you to the Salesforce Industry Summit on October 7th because we designed it for you. The link is at the bottom of the screen where you can register at sforce.co/ind-summit-HLS, but it might just be easier to just type Salesforce Industry Summit into Google and it will be the first option. We're showcasing how we are delivering innovative and purpose-built solutions to help any size healthcare organization realize fast time to value on a flexible and scalable patient engagement platform. So we hope to see you there. And just to wrap it up, we hope that all of you, your colleagues, and your families are staying safe, hopefully sooner rather than later. We can all have these conversations in person. And thank you all for joining us today and submitting some great questions. As a reminder, you will be able to access the recording of this webinar within 24 hours. Have a great day. That concludes our webinar. And thanks to all of you for what you do for so many.